Now, back to your turn on 1330 WEBY, Northwest Florida's talk radio. The phone lines are open, so call in and join the conversation at 623-1330.
Good afternoon. Welcome back to Your Turn. This is Mike Bates. As we said before going to the break, I wanted to talk about this head tax that is going on in Seattle, and I have joining me by telephone from Seattle, Robert Ade. He is the owner of Skyline Properties in Seattle. He specializes in condos. So, Rob Ade, welcome to Your Turn.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you for inviting me. I'm glad to be on. Just to be clear, I don't own Skyline Properties, but I am a broker with them. I specialize in downtown Seattle condos. I'm very active in downtown Seattle with property owners and with the economy and, as an advocate for the downtown businesses.
Well, thank you for that correction. Truth above all. I thought since you were the broker, I thought you were the owner, but appreciate you making that correction. So the city of Seattle has proposed this head tax, which is basically just a levy on employees. They don't have to do anything. It's just if you're employed, your employer, assuming that you have more than, 2,000 workers?
It's not based on the number of workers. It's based on your gross annual revenue. So if your company generates $20 million a year or more in revenue, you are a target of the tax.
Okay. And how much is the tax?
Well, the tax is $275 per employee, and this was one of the big, negotiation points. Seattle Council tried to get $1,000 per employee last fall. They were unsuccessful. It was a very unpopular thing. They came back this year and brought the tax back to life. They wanted $500. This all started in City Council. And they weren't able to, there's 9 council members. They weren't able to get the votes. So some negotiations went on. Amazon actually stood up, which made me very happy, and said, hey, if you guys are going to put this tax on us, we're halting. Amazon's right now constructing like 4 or 5 big skyscrapers in downtown Seattle, and they actually halted the construction of a 65-story office tower and said, hey, if you're going to put this tax, maybe we're going to stop building, in Seattle. So some negotiation went on, and they got the rate down to $275.
All right, well, I want to address the Amazon objection in a moment, but let's talk about the tax itself. We all know that government has an insatiable appetite for money, especially big city government. What the heck do they plan to do with this money?
Well, the money is going to be targeted at affordable housing and homeless services. That's really the target of this. Seattle does have a homeless problem. There's people camped out under the interstates. There's, people sleeping on the streets here and there. I live in downtown. Walking around, you do see it. I don't find it an overwhelming problem for living in downtown Seattle, but it is a significant issue that needs to be addressed.
Okay, so they want to tax employed people. Granted, it's the company, but they want to base a tax on the number of employed people so that they can transfer that wealth to the homeless. Is that a reasonable assessment? Okay.
Yeah, they're saying that all these big employers have brought in all these high-paying jobs. Isn't that awful? And pushed the price of real estate up, and that's, accelerated homelessness.
Oh, right, because there's no homelessness in Seattle before these big companies pushed up the price of labor, huh?
Yeah, no homeless problem before that.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds to me like it's just an excuse for a money grab.
Yeah, the Seattle businesses are under assault from City Council. Let me just review a few here now. Just in the past several years, Council has passed a sugary drink tax. They'll come up with any reason they can to raise money. So they had the tax on sugary drinks. Then, of course, they raised the to $15. Before that was $9.40. And they've instituted a lot of hiring, firing, and leave rules, and now the head tax. So, the big fear is that all of this is sending a message that Seattle is an anti-business environment, and it's not a pro-growth environment. And it's my position that the best way to create prosperity for your citizens is to offer a growing economy with offers a lot of good job opportunities, and Seattle's incentivizing the opposite.
Right. When you tax something, you disincent it, and when you free something from taxation, you incent it. So people are being taxed for jobs. Why create jobs if they're just going to be taxed? And granted, it may be a small amount. I mean, I don't know what the average wage at Amazon is, but I'm certain it's above minimum wage, which, by the way, doesn't Seattle have a much higher minimum wage than the rest of the country?
Yeah, I think, at $15 an hour, we were a trendsetter in raising the minimum wage up to a substantial level. There may be other cities that are higher, but we're right up there.
Yeah, and what'd that do? Did that cause the lower end employment to be reduced?
Well, they've been phasing it in, and over several years, and I don't have the exact statistics for you on the effect. I have talked to business owners that have told me, hey, I was going to open a restaurant downtown. Instead, I'm going to open it in a different neighborhood to escape some of these regulations. So it's just part of the overall atmosphere that's being created, which is not business and job friendly.
All right, well, let's talk about the hypocrisy of some of these owners. And Jeff Bezos is, of course, the owner of Amazon, which, granted, is a publicly traded company, but he's the majority shareholder and all that, so it's his company. This guy contributes hundreds of millions of dollars to all kinds of left-wing causes. Chances are pretty good that he donated to these very city councilmen who have now voted to impose this tax. Where does he get off wanting the left to tax everybody but himself?
Well, you can make that argument, but of course, nobody's generated more tax revenue for the city of Seattle and the state of Washington. Well, maybe you could say Bill Gates, but other than Bill Gates, I'd say Jeff Bezos and his Amazon has created more tax revenue and more wealth for the city of Seattle than anybody. So, he's doing his share. He also has done a lot for homeless. He bought a hotel in downtown Seattle and turned it into a homeless shelter. It's called Mary's Place, totally at Amazon's expense, and so he's been doing a lot.
Ooh, well, I didn't know about that. That might have been the reason that they did it, because they don't want the private sector taking care of the homeless. The public sector needs to do that so they can get votes in exchange for it.
No doubt. No doubt.
All right, so that's not the only tax going on in Seattle, and I know we're here in Pensacola, so people are wondering why Seattle? I mean, Seattle is about as far away from Pensacola as you can get and still be in the contiguous 48 states. But it's just to speak to the stupidity of government that they want these companies to come in, and then once they're there, they want to tax them out of existence. And I predict that that Jeff Bezos will continue the project anyway because he's got so many sunk costs in it. I don't see this Block 18 tower not being finished. Do you?
It appears that they're going to continue. They've got a lot of money invested in it. Even if they want to start redirecting some of their jobs other than Seattle, they're going to finish this tower, and then maybe they could sell it if they wanted. But whoever buys it's going to want to pay less. But I would just highlight that you guys are in Pensacola, Florida. We're in Seattle, but we're all part of the same economy, and there's an interesting precedent. A lot of them, you could look at Detroit, Michigan. There's a phenomenon called the Detroit pattern, which is that, at one time Detroit was the envy of the United States or maybe even the world with their economic growth. I mean, they had massive economic growth, lots of great paying jobs, and after a half century of government excess, of increasing taxes, harassing businesses, and pandering to unions, the cost of doing business got very high there. And even to this day, Detroit's got some of the highest property taxes in the nation, up to 4%. So, those jobs ended up leaving Detroit. Now look what the town's like. You can buy a house there for $1,000. And it's just a good example of, government overly burdening businesses and chasing jobs away.
Yeah, there was a time that Detroit was the wealthiest city, not only in the United States, but in the world. And now look how dilapidated it is.
Yep. I think what City Council here doesn't understand is it's not up to Amazon. Certainly Amazon's very wealthy. Jeff Bezos is very wealthy right now, but it's not up to him to pay this tax. It's up to the consumer. The consumer makes the ultimate choice, and Amazon's rise has been fueled to a great degree by their ability to provide a product at a very low cost and an excellent level of service at a very low cost. And if their cost of doing business keeps going up like council wants it to, what's to stop some competitor coming along and providing the same service at a lower cost because they don't have those taxes in a different city, and Amazon can fade away and we can lose jobs. It used to be at one time Sears was the number one retailer and they were replaced by Kmart, and then Kmart was number one and they were replaced by Walmart, and it goes on because somebody new comes along with a better model, and these jobs don't have to stay forever.
Right. I would like to address one more thing, and we got to do it quickly because we've got just under 2 minutes before I have to break for bottom of the hour news. But you and I were talking off the air about this thing in Seattle called a lid tax, where they're wanting to tax condo owners to build a park or something.
Yes, I've also been advocating on the behalf of downtown Seattle condo owners about this lid tax. Seattle's remaking their waterfront, and one of the biggest costs is being passed on to downtown condo owners. Less than 2% of Seattle property owners are downtown condo owners, and we're being asked to pay $200 million divided up amongst us to pay for waterfront improvements for a project that's going to benefit the whole city, the state, and really the world in terms of tourism. So I've been advocating on the behalf of condo owners to try and get this cost more evenly distributed.
So a new Seattle waterfront that will be open to the public, but they want to finance it by the condo owners who will not have the exclusive use of it. That makes sense. Note the sarcasm.
Yeah, their park slogan is a park for all.
Yeah, well, great. A tax for all. A park for all, a tax for all. Don't get 2% to pay for it.
Yeah, the condo owners kind of joke on that line. We say, a park for all, paid for by the few, So.
Yeah. Well, I wish you luck in that. All right, well, Rob Ade, broker with Skyline Properties in Seattle. I appreciate you joining us.
Yeah, and you can visit me at my website, seattlecondospecialist.com.
All right, Rob Ade, Seattle Condo Specialist. We got a break now in 11 seconds for bottom of the hour news. When we come back, we'll continue the conversation. If you'd like to be part of it, we'd love to talk to you when your turn continues on 1330 WEBY, Northwest Florida's Talk Radio.